In this video, we're going to finish the Systems of Two Equations worksheet on the KutaSoftware website under the Infinite Algebra 2 section, finishing this last page where we're going to start by solving each system by elimination. And what that means is we're going to try to eliminate a variable within the system and then solve for that remaining variable, use that new value, and solve for the one we originally eliminated. So in number 15, we either want to eliminate our x variables or we want to eliminate our y variables. And that's through addition or subtraction of our equations. So finding the least common multiple of 8 and 16, that's going to be 16. The least common multiple of 6 and 7, we'd have to multiply both the top and bottom equation. So why don't we just multiply this first equation by 2? Remember, whatever we do to the left, we need to do to the right. So we're multiplying 2 to 8x minus 6y, and we're also multiplying 2 to negative 20. So rewriting the system, distributing that 2 to both the 8x and the 6y, we'll get 16x minus 12y, since 2 times 8x is 16x and 2 times 6y is 12y, and that's going to be equal to negative 40. Now, rewriting the bottom equation, negative 16x plus 7y equals 30. You can see that if we were to add these two equations together, 16x plus negative 16x is 0x, which is 0. So all we'll have left is negative 12y plus a positive 7y, which will be negative 5y, and that will be equal to negative 40 plus 30, which is a negative 10. So then, when I divide both sides by negative 5, I'll get that y is equal to a positive 2, since negative 10 divided by negative 5 is positive 2. Now I need to take this value of y and plug it in either the top equation, the bottom equation, or my modified equation. Let's plug it into that top equation. So we'll have 8x minus 6 times 2 equal to negative 20. So that's 8x minus 6 times 2 is minus 12, and that equals negative 20. Our next step will be to add 12 to both sides to get that 8x equals a negative 8. And then when we divide by 8, we'll get that x equals negative 1. So if x is negative 1 and y is positive 2, our solution in number 15 is negative 1, 2. Let's continue on to number 16. In number 16, we have 6x minus 12y equals 24, and we have negative x minus 6y equals positive 4. Now note, 6, 12, and 24 are all divisible by 6. So let's divide this left-hand side by 6 and the right-hand side by 6. In doing that, 6x divided by 6 is 1x, or x, minus 12y divided by 6 will be minus 2y, and then 24 divided by 6 is 4. Now, let's rewrite that bottom equation. So we'll have negative x minus 6y equals 4. And you can see that in doing that, now I can add my two equations together, because my x's will be eliminated because they both have a coefficient of 1 and negative 1. So x minus x is 0, negative 2y plus negative 6y is negative 8y, and that's going to equal 4 plus 4, which is 8. So dividing both sides by negative 8, I'll get that y is equal to negative 1. Now I'll take that value of negative 1 and plug it in to either of my first equations, or that equation that I modified. Let's plug it in to this bottom equation. So I'll have negative x minus 6 times negative 1 equal to a positive 4. So that's negative x minus 6 times negative 1 is minus negative 6, or plus a positive 6, and that equals positive 4. Now, when I subtract 6 from both sides, I'll get that negative x equals a negative 2. So my final step is either to multiply both sides or divide both sides by negative 1. That will give me that positive x equals a positive 2. So 2, negative 1 is my solution in number 16. Let's continue on to number 17. In number 17, it will be easiest, I believe, to cross out my y's, and I'll do that by multiplying the bottom equation by 2 and doing that to both the left-hand side and the right-hand side. So rewriting my top equation, I'll have negative 8x minus 10y equal to positive 24. Now, distributing that 2 in my bottom equation, I'll get 12x plus 10y equal to 2 times 2, which is 4. Now, I'll add both of my equations together because negative 10y plus 10y is 0. So negative 8x plus 12x is a positive 4x, and that's going to be equal to 24 plus 4, which is 28. And when I divide by 4, I'll get that x is equal to a positive 7. So I'll take that value of 7 and plug it in to any of my equations. Let's plug it in to that bottom equation. So 6 times 7 plus 5 times y will equal 2. 6 times 7 is 42, so 42 plus 5y equals positive 2. And by subtracting 42 from both sides, I'll get that 5y equals a negative 40. My next step will be to divide by 5 to get that y is equal to a negative 8. So my solution in number 17 is 7 for x and negative 8 for y. Let's move on to number 18. In number 18, I have negative 24 minus 8x equals 12y. Then I have 1 plus 5/9 y equals negative 7/18 x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these denominators, and I'm going to do that by multiplying both sides by 18. Now my 18 will cancel out on my right-hand side, and on my left-hand side, I'm going to need to distribute it. So I will have 18 plus 5/9 times 18. 18 divided by 9 is 2, and 2 times 5 is 10. So 18 times 5/9 is 10, so that's 10y. That's going to be equal to negative 7x, because 18 divided by 18 is 1, and negative 7 times 1 times x is negative 7x. Now my first equation has the constant, and we're subtracting that term with x, and that's equal to the term with y. So we want this equation in a similar format. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the x's and y's, and I'm going to do that by subtracting 10y from both sides and adding 7x to both sides. So now you can see I'll have 18 plus 7x equal to negative 10y. Now what I'm looking for out of these two equations is how I can eliminate a variable. So let's see if we can eliminate x. And in order to do that, we need our x's to have a common multiple as the coefficient. So 7 and 8, a common multiple is 56. So if I was to multiply the top equation by 7 and the bottom equation by 8, in this first equation, negative 24 times 7 equals negative 168, and then I'll be subtracting 8x times 7, which is 56x, and that will equal 12y times 7, which is 84y. And in that new bottom equation, I'll multiply 8 to 18, 7x, and negative 10y. So 8 times 18 is 144, and then I'll be adding that to 7x times 8, which is 56x, and that will equal negative 10y times 8, which is negative 80y. Now I'm going to be adding these two equations together because negative 56x plus 56x is 0. So I have negative 168 plus 144, which will give me a negative 24. And that's going to be equal to 84y minus 80y, which is 4y. And that's a positive 4y. So then all I need to do is divide both sides by 4 to get that negative 6 is equal to y. And now that I have that negative 6 equals y, I'll take that value of y and plug it into either of my equations. Let's plug it into this first equation. So negative 24 minus 8x equals 12 times negative 6. So that's negative 24 minus 8x equals 12 times negative 6, is negative 72. So then I'll add 24 to both sides to get that negative 8x equals negative 72 plus a positive 24 will give me a negative 48. And then when I divide both sides by negative 8, I'll get that x is equal to a positive 6. So x is 6 and y is negative 6 in number 18. Let's continue on to number 19. Now there's many different ways to do number 19, and I'm going to start by simplifying this bottom equation. If I divide everything by 10, so dividing the left-hand side by 10 and the right-hand side by 10, 20 divided by 10 is 2, and that's going to be equal to negative 10 divided by 10, which is negative 1, so negative x, minus 10 divided by 10, which is 1, and 1 times y is y. So I have 2 equal to negative x minus y. Now, in my first equation, I have negative 4y minus 11x equals 36. So I'm just going to rewrite this, flipping the left-hand side and right-hand side. So negative x minus y is also the same as negative y minus x, and that's going to be equal to 2. So now you can see that I have y plus or minus x equal to some constant, my y term plus or minus some x equal to some constant. Now my goal is going to be to cancel out my y's, and in order to do that, I'm going to need to multiply this new equation by 4. So rewriting my top equation, I'll get negative 4y minus 11x equal to 36. When I multiply this bottom equation by 4, 4 times negative y is negative 4y, and then 4 times x will be minus 4x, and that will be equal to 4 times 2, which is 8. Now, as opposed to adding, like I've been doing, I'm going to need to subtract these two equations. By subtracting, negative 4y minus negative 4y is negative 4y plus 4y, which is 0. Then I'll have negative 11x minus negative 4x, so negative 11 plus 4, which is negative 7x, and then 36 minus 8, which is 28. Now, I'll divide both sides by negative 7 to get that x equals negative 4. And I can take that value of x, which is negative 4, and plug it in to any of my equations. Let's plug it in to that modified equation. So I'll have 2 equal to negative x, or the opposite of negative 4, minus y. So that's 2 equal to positive 4 minus y, which, if I subtract 4 from both sides, I'll get that negative 2 equals negative y, but I will need to multiply both sides by negative 1 in order to get that y to be positive. So I'll get that positive 2 is equal to a positive y. So negative 4 for x and 2 for y is my solution in number 19. Now on to number 20. In number 20, it may look as though I'm not in the same form. However, I have a constant plus y equal to some x value, and in the second equation, I have a constant and y equal to some x value. So all I have to do is switch one of these equations. Let's go ahead and flip this top. So I'll have negative 4x equal to negative 9 plus 5y. And rewriting my bottom equation, negative 11x equals negative 20 plus 9y. Now I can either cancel out my x's by multiplying the top by 11 and the bottom by 4, or I can cancel out my y's by multiplying the top by 9 and the bottom by 5. Let's cancel out those x's. So I'm going to multiply this entire top equation by 11, and I'm going to multiply the entire bottom equation by 4, because 11 times 4 is 44, and 4 times 11 is 44. So distributing this 11 times negative 4x will be negative 44x, and that's going to be equal to 11 times negative 9, which is negative 99, plus 5y times 11, which is 55y. Now distributing this 4 times negative 11 is negative 44, and that's multiplied to x, and that's going to be equal to negative 20 times 4, which is negative 80, and then added to 9y times 4, which is 36y. Now, I cannot add these two equations together in order to eliminate my x's, so I'm going to need to subtract them. Subtracting a negative 44x from negative 44x is the same as negative 44x plus 44x. So that will give me 0. So I'll have 0 equal to negative 99 minus a negative 80, which will be a negative 19. And then 55y minus 36y will be a positive 19y. Now I'll add 19 to both sides to get that positive 19 equals 19y, and when I divide by 19, I'll get that 1 is equal to y. So if 1 is equal to y, I'll take that value of 1 and plug it into any of my equations. So let's plug that 1, which is equal to y, into this bottom equation. So I'll have negative 11x equal to negative 20 plus 9 times 1, which is simply 9. So that's negative 11x equal to negative 20 plus 9, which is negative 11. Finally, I'll divide both sides by negative 11 to get that x is also equal to a positive 1. So in number 20, 1 and 1 is my solution. 1 for x and 1 for y. On to number 21. In number 21, I have 0 equals negative 2y plus 10 minus 6x. However, I want my x on one side of that equation so that they're similar. So I'll go ahead and add 6x to both sides in my first equation. So that will give me that 6x equals negative 2y plus 10. And now I'll go ahead and flip this other equation around so that my x is also on the left-hand side. So 18x equals negative 22y plus 14. So essentially, I just rewrote that bottom equation in a different order. I either want to cancel out my x's or my y's. Let's cancel out my x's, and I can do so if I were to multiply this top equation by 3. Multiplying everything in that top equation by 3, I would get 18x equal to negative 6y plus 30. And now I'll rewrite that bottom equation, 18x equals negative 22y plus 14, but I'm going to be subtracting it because 18x minus 18x is 0, so I'll get that 0 equals negative 6y plus 22y, which is a positive 16y, and then I'll add 30 minus 14, which is 16. So subtracting 16 from both sides, I'll get that negative 16 equals 16y, and then dividing by 16, I'll get that negative 1 is equal to y. So if negative 1 equals y, I'll take that value and plug it in to any of my equations. Let's plug it into this first. So I'll have 14 minus 22 times negative 1 equal to 18x. 14 minus 22 times negative 1 is 14 plus 22, which equals 36. So 36 equals 18x. And when I divide by 18, I'll get that 2 is equal to x. So 2, negative 1 is my solution in number 21. Let's move on to number 22. In number 22, in order for these equations to be in the same form, I'm going to need to add 4x to both sides in this bottom equation. In doing that, I'll get negative 11y equal to 15 plus 4x. Now 6 and 4, in order to eliminate my x's, have a common multiple, and that's 12. I can multiply this first equation by 2, and I can multiply this bottom equation by 3 in order to eliminate those x's. So multiplying that top equation by 2, 2 times negative 16y will be negative 32y, and that will equal 2 times 22, which is 44, and then adding that to 2 times 6x, which is 12x. Then multiplying 3 to this bottom equation, 3 times negative 11y is negative 33y, and that will equal 3 times 15, which is 45, plus 3 times 4x, which is 12x. Now, in order to cancel out my 12x's, I'm going to need to subtract. 12x minus 12x is 0. negative 32y minus negative 33y is negative 32y plus 33y, which is a positive 1y, or simply y, and that's going to be equal to 44 minus 45, which is negative 1. So we have that y equals negative 1. Therefore, I'm going to take that value of y and plug it in to any of my equations. Let's plug it in to this bottom equation. So I'll have negative 11 times negative 1 minus 4x equals 15. Negative 11 times negative 1 is positive 11, and when I subtract 4x from that, I'll get 15. So subtracting 11 from both sides, I'll get negative 4x equal to 15 minus 11, which is a positive 4. Now, when I divide by negative 4, I'll get that x equals a negative 1. So in number 22, negative 1 is my solution. Let's move on to number 23. Now in number 23, I'm going to need to rearrange this top equation so that it's in the same form as my bottom equation. And I'll do so by adding 16 to both sides so that my constant is on one side. So I'll get 20x minus 8y equal to 16. And then in this bottom equation, I'm going to flip it around so that I have my constant on my right-hand side. So negative 18y minus 22x, I'll write as negative 22x minus 18y, and that's equal to a positive 36. Now I'm going to simplify before I try to eliminate. So I'm going to divide this top equation by 2, and I'm also going to divide this bottom equation by 2. So I'll get 10x minus 4y equal to 8 for my top equation, and then in my bottom equation I'll get negative 11x minus 9y equal to 18. Now in order to get my y's similar so that I can add or subtract to eliminate, I'll multiply that top equation by 9 and I'll multiply this bottom equation by 4. So 9 times 10 is 90, so that's 90x minus 9 times y is 36y, and that's going to be equal to 9 times 8, which is 72. 4 times negative 11x is negative 44x, minus 4 times 9y, which is 36y. That's going to be equal to 4 times 18, which is a positive 72. Now I'm going to subtract in order to cancel out my y's. Negative 36y minus negative 36y is 0, so I'll have 90x minus negative 44, which is 90 plus 44, so 90x plus 44x is 134x, and that's going to be equal to 72 minus 72, which is 0. So x is 0. Now I'll plug 0 in for x and solve for y. So I'll get 36 equal to negative 18y minus 22 times 0, which is 0. So dividing by negative 18, I'll get that negative 2 equals y. So my solution for number 23 is 0, negative 2. Now on to number 24, which is the last problem in this section. I'm going to start by simplifying that top equation by multiplying everything by a positive 7. Doing that will help me cancel out my denominators. So I will have negative 5 minus 11x equal to negative 7y. Because 7 will cancel out both my 7's and my denominators on my left-hand side, and 7 times negative y is negative 7y. And then I'm going to flip this and rewrite it so that it's 7 plus 5x equal to 2y. Now in order to cancel out my y's, I'm going to multiply my top equation by 2 and my bottom equation by 7. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10, minus 11x times 2 is 22x. That's going to be equal to negative 7y times 2, which is negative 14y. And then 7 times 7 is 49, and then I'll be adding that to 5x times 7, which is 35x, and that will equal 2y times 7, which is 14y. Now, I'll simply add these two equations together, so that negative 14y plus 14y equals 0. Negative 10 plus 49 will be 39, and that will be added to negative 22x plus 35x, which is 13x. So I have 39 plus 13x equal to 0. Subtracting 39 from both sides, I'll get that 13x equals a negative 39. And when I divide by 13, I'll get that x is equal to a negative 3. So I'll take that value of x and plug it in to my bottom equation. So I will have 2y equal to 7 plus 5 times negative 3, which is 2y equal to 7 plus negative 15. So 2y will equal 7 plus negative 15 is a negative 8. And when I divide by 2, I'll get that y equals negative 4. So x is negative 3 and y is negative 4. So negative 3, negative 4 is my solution in number 24. Now let's move on to our critical thinking question. It says to write a system of equations with the solution where x is 4 and y is negative 3. So if x is 4 and y is negative 3, we can add x and y together. So 4 plus negative 3 will equal a positive 1. Therefore, x plus y equals 1 is one equation. However, we need a system of equations that will work. So let's say we multiply x by 3 and then add that to y. Then what will that equal? So 3 times x will be 3 times 4, and if we add y, adding negative 3, that will be 12 plus negative 3, which equals a positive 9. So here is our system. X plus y equals 1 and 3x plus y equals 9. And there's many other ways you can write a system of equations with the solution for negative 3. You can multiply y by 3 as opposed to multiplying x by 3. Or you could have multiplied one of those variables by 2 to get that new equation. So any combination of equations where x and y are 4 and negative 3 as the solution will work for a system of equations. So feel free to be creative and come up with a completely different system. And with that, we wrap up this video and this worksheet as well. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.